Now, there are three main reasons why you would want to buy a premium in War Thunder. One, you're interested in the tech tree that it's sitting in. Two, you just really like the plane and you just want to skip to it. Or three, you're getting it because of the matchmaker. And for me at least, the Swiss FA-18C currently sitting in the German tech tree definitely 100% sits in the third of those categories. Of course, I play sim on this channel, and that's why it's in the title of the video. And if you are a fellow sim enjoyer like me, what your $80 are essentially getting you here is the ability to actually have fun in the 12.7 BR bracket. And if you don't play the 12.7 bracket yourself, just allow me to explain real quick. In Sim, because of the way the game mode is set up, you always have the US, which we call the blue team, go up against Russia, China, and Germany, which we call the red team. And that's all well and good. The problem is though, between sort of 12.0 and 13.0, the blue teams are just better in terms of aircraft, right? I don't really think there's a debate about it. I've gone into detail about this on countless other videos, so check my channel out if you're interested in that. But this has sort of always led to an instance where the blue team is completely filled up with just everyone fighting like two dudes on the red team. And the reason it's only two dudes is because people leave and nobody wants to join that team, because go figure, nobody actually wants to go up against overwhelming odds. And of course, with this thing being a premium, it's not going to change that overall situation too much. But if you do still decide to go up against the Horde, you're going to be in an aircraft now that's actually really damn good for its BR. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money. You're old enough to make these big boy decisions by yourself. I'm just going to give you some opinions and I'm going to give you some facts about this plane. And the fact is here, the actual aircraft itself is a pretty good package for the BR. A lot of people like to give the F-18 shit because of how slow it is, and to be fair, yes, it is definitely slower than something like an F-16, but I mean, you can still break the sound barrier. If you do climb up a little bit, you can get up to Mach 1.2. You know, it's not like a I don't know, like a JH-17 or something, right? It's just not as fast as the planes around it, right? But in my experience, it only really becomes an issue when you're trying to like chase someone down, or you're trying to do BVR, or you know, you're running back to base or something like that. In those kind of situations, yeah, you are going to have the shorter straw. But when it comes to just, you know, cruising around or dogfighting, or, you know, those kind of like furball speeds, you know, where you're just going like 1,000 kilometers an hour or something like that, those kind of speeds, it accelerates up to 1,000 kilometers an hour, you know, relatively fast like any other jet around it. Maybe it is a bit slower than the F-16 or whatever, you know, but it's not like a hugely noticeable thing. It's just when it gets past that sound barrier is where the drag of the airframe kind of starts to take over, and that's really what's holding the plane back here. I understand in RB it is a bit of an issue, because in RB, you know, speeds are generally a little bit higher. There's generally a little bit more BVR as well, just because, yeah, there's so many more people. You know, you have like a spotting system and stuff like that, and I don't know, I don't really play RB, but I understand it is a bit more of an issue in that game mode. But in Sim, your engagements are a little bit more isolated, which is to say that you get into a lot more, you know, 1v1s kind of type stuff. And those kind of like within 5 mile, you know, distance engagements is where the F-18, in my opinion, really starts to shine, because it just has such a good kit, right? It has a pretty good radar for the BR. It gets a super good vertical scan ACM mode. So while you don't have an HMD in this thing, the vertical scan on the ACM on the radar goes up to about 60 degrees, I think. So, and it's actually quite good at picking planes up as well. It pulls loads of AOA, doesn't compress too much as well. So you really can, as long as you have a little bit of speed, you really can pull the nose round and point it wherever you want. Pretty much whenever you want as well, which allows you to get your missiles off at really good angles and stuff like that as well. That's actually another thing. The missile kit that this thing gets is phenomenal. You get the choice between 6 AIM-7P Sparrows accompanied by 2 AIM-9L Sidewinders, or 4 Sparrows accompanied by 6 Sidewinders. So essentially you have a choice between 8 missiles focusing on more long-range engagements, or 10 missiles focusing on more short-range engagements, which I kind of like. This gives the F-18 quite a lot of flexibility, and couple this with 120 single pop countermeasures as well, it has quite a bit of staying power to it, unlike something like the MiG-29, for instance, where you're basically on your way back to base once your 10 minutes of fun are up. The fuel burn rate for this plane isn't too bad as well, by the way. It's kind of average. You can put up to 35 minutes on the internal tank, although I wouldn't recommend that because it does get quite heavy. You can take up to 3 drop tanks with you as well, with each drop tank having about 5 or 6 minutes. I don't quite remember what it is. But yeah, you can stay in the air for quite a long time in this thing. The problem is when you're traveling from A to B, say like if you're bombing or something like that, you are going to be using up a lot more fuel to get to that point, just because the plane is naturally a little bit slower than its contemporaries, but it's not too big of a deal. And then of course you also get, you know, all of this stuff here in the loadouts. I don't know. There are Maverick E's. I don't know. Are they good? You tell me. The thing is, though, this is a very well-rounded plane, and it's very well equipped to deal with a wide range of threats, right? So let's just take BVR, for instance. You actually get a pretty good radar. You have a TWS mode. You have some pretty decent scan angles and stuff like that. Great, absolutely great ACM mode. Then you get a digital RWR. You get up to 6 Sparrows, which, you know, I know the Sparrow isn't as good as the R27ER, but I mean, the MiG-29 gets 2 of them, and you get 6 of them, right? So, in my mind, that's an upgrade. Now, I can already hear you typing away in the comments, being like, "Oh yeah, but the engines, bro, it's just, you know, so difficult, it's so slow, and it means the missile's not going to go as far, and blah blah blah." Right? First of all, this is Fox 1 combat, so nobody's going to be shooting at you from 30 miles away. Also, what are you actually fighting, right? We're playing Germany, so we're playing against the US, the UK, and I think Israel, right? So, what are you fighting? Well, you're fighting against the F-16A, which doesn't have Sparrows, so there's no BVR capability there at all. You're fighting the F-14, which, okay, has Phoenixes. You do need to kind of be careful with them, but personally, I don't have that much of a problem dealing with F-14s, because their radar's kind of trash, and it struggles to track you in rear aspect, and if you can already see an F-14 sort of closing in on you, you can kind of just go rear aspect a little bit, drop a little bit of chaff, and he's just not gonna see you, right? And then you have, I don't know, the F-20, which I guess could be a bit of a threat, but it's a premium, so you're not going to run into them too much. There is also the Bison, which I've run into quite a few times, but you know, it's a MiG-21 with standard R27Rs. And then of course you just have other F-18s, right, which by the way get a slightly weaker engine than you do as well, so it's really not that bad. When it comes to BVR, this plane really isn't that bad for the type of aircraft that it's facing. Now, if you're playing on the 13.0 days, that does change a little bit with the F-15A and you know, obviously things like the Kafir C-10 stuff like that. But for the 12.7 days, you're not that contested. And then you have the close range fight as well, right? The dogfight. Now, obviously, an F-16A that's well flown by someone who knows what they're doing is not going to let you kill them with a Sparrow. They're going to end up getting close and drain you of your energy and then, you know, have fun with that. The thing is, in a MiG-29, you just kind of have to let this happen, and there's not that much that you can do, right? But with the F-18, you can capitalize on any mistake that your opponent makes so much easier in this thing than you can the MiG-29, which of course is the German tech tree equivalent of this plane, because it's at the same BR. And it's amazing that they're at the same BR, because if you manage to get that F-16 a little bit slow, if you manage to, you know, even they get them into like a rolling scissors or something, your chances of winning shoot up by about 200%. It is straight up stonks, right? The AOA performance on this plane, nose authority on the F-18 is absolutely phenomenal. As well as it just also being a very controllable plane. It has a very strong rudder as well. You can stall it, you can get into a flat spin of course, but if you just, you know, if you're a little bit careful, you really can whip this thing around with not a lot of airspeed, and that's just something that even the F-16A can't do. And if that thing struggles with it, then the MiG-29 has absolutely no chance. Now, I know the video isn't going to be that long or anything like that, but to be honest with you, there's just not that much more to say about this plane. I mean, it's an F-18 as good as it is at 12.7. You just get to play it on the red side, that's it. That's the only real difference really. I mean, I said earlier you get a little bit more engine power, and that's because this thing actually gets the engines that the later F-18 has, as compared to the earlier one, so it's not a major difference or anything like that, at least not from what I've noticed, but you know, it is a little advantage, especially if you're going up against other American F-18s in a dogfight or something. It can make a bit of a difference, but more often than not, the skill gap difference at this BR is so, you know, it's kind of what wins fights most of the time anyway, so that's actually another point, the skill gap. So while this plane is very forgiving for new players, it's just overall such a good package, right? You get a really good weapons package, avionics are up top, cockpit's really nice as well, you get a Vulcan right in the middle under the gun sight, so it's just fantastic. If you are, and I want you to be honest with yourself here, if you really want to know if this thing is worth the money for you or not, if you're better than average, right, you don't have to be amazing, but you know, if you go positive most of your games, you know what you're doing, you have a little bit of experience under your belt, you've done some dogfighting or whatever, you know how, you know what a notch is, you know how to do it like fairly consistently, stuff like that, you are gonna have a lot of fun in this plane. And the reason for that is because in the 12-7 bracket, the US team is, like I said, so congested, right? There's so many players. Whenever a slot frees up on the US team, it usually gets filled within like 30 seconds. You do not run out of enemies, and a lot of the US players at this BR are just, then there's a lot of noobs around. I'm not going to say they're all terrible because that's not the point of this video, but there's a lot of premiums around on that BR. The F4S, for instance, which is a 12.0 for some reason, 12.0 gets matched up with 12.7 all the time. So you get the F20, you get a lot of people that have just grinded out their first 4th gen, or they've just skipped to a premium or something like that. And these players aren't particularly hard to deal with. Obviously, it's just seal clubbing at the end of the day. And if you know what you're doing, you can do this pretty well on the F18. The F18 is actually really good at doing this because, like I said, of the large weapons load, you get up to 10 missiles, which is potentially up to 10 kills, right? You get a lot of fuel, you get a lot of countermeasures, you can loiter for a very long time in this plane, and then whenever someone that's decent does show up on the enemy team, you can give them a pretty decent fight. It's not like, well, MiG-29, fun places here, nothing we can do, pack your bags, time to go back to the hangar, right? It's not like that at all. This plane can actually give even the best players a good fight if you know how to wield it. But yeah, that is my take on the Swiss FA-18. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm not going to tell you if it's worth the $80 because everyone kind of values money differently, right? It depends how much you make, how much disposable income you have, yada yada yada. I've given you the facts about the plane, and even though I've been incredibly burnt out on the game the last couple of weeks, the time I've taken to record the footage for this video, I've actually really enjoyed myself. So take that for what it's worth. I hope I could help. I hope I could impact your decision a little bit, or a better idea if you actually want to get this thing or not now, if you want to skip it. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope to see you in the next one. Cheers.